every 6 years. So 6 years from now, we'll be doing this again, as the state has asked us to hold these forums with our community. We want to acknowledge the collaborative effort invested in planning these events, highlighting the joint involvement of the Board of Education and the Curriculum and Professional Learning Department. We want to stress the inclusion of input from teachers and former students, emphasizing the shared commitment to providing D51 students with a high-quality public education. These forums symbolize opportunities where diverse stakeholders are encouraged to voice their perspectives. And I just realized I didn't introduce who I was, but my name is Andrea Heights, and I am the school board president, so sorry that I did not explain who I was. I'd like to take a moment to celebrate our civic participation this evening and express gratitude to everyone here for your attendance and participation. So we will kick it off to Jen Marsh and her team to go over our presentation this evening. We do have a sign-up sheet over on the table for public comment. We will pause taking public comment while we're doing the presentation, but we will open it up for you to sign up again if you'd like. We would encourage you that if you think you might want to speak, go ahead and sign up. If we call your name during public comment and you've decided you don't want to speak or your questions have been answered, you can just say pass. So if in doubt, please do sign up, and then we'll go from there. So I'll kick it over to Jen Marsh.
Thank you, President Heights. Hello, I'm Jennifer Marsh. I'm District 51's Chief Academic Officer. As President Heights says, it is encouraging to see so many of our members of our community here this evening, ready to actively participate in these forums. The purpose of which, as a point of emphasis and clarification, is to create space for public comment on the state of Colorado's newly revised K-12 civics and history standards. Before public comment begins, we'd like to orient you to the materials made available to you tonight, specifically the standards. For that, I'm now going to turn it over to our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Jackie Anderson, along with our K-12 Content Specialist for Social Studies.
Thank you, Jen. Good evening. You've heard it now a couple of times. Our purpose for meeting tonight, the purpose for the forum, is to really engage the community with the standards, the social studies standards. So in the next 10 to 15 minutes, you'll hear from Ms. Amy Bischoff, who is our K-12 Social Studies Content Specialist. And her purpose for speaking is to review with you the standards. And so you have access to the standards physically. Those were at the table near the front. And if you prefer, digitally too. So those QR codes that are both on the agenda, if you access that through the flyer and then post it around the room, will also link you to the state standards. You saw briefly on screen the guidelines for participation. We mean to facilitate and host this forum just as we would a Board of Education meeting. And so we ask that you not interrupt or pose questions during Ms. Shaw's presentation. We really want you to engage with the standards so that we're all on the same page before we start to give public comment. All right, thank you. I'm happy to introduce Ms. Amy Shaw.
Thank you so much for attending this opportunity to learn more about the state of Colorado's history and civic standards that guide teaching and learning in District 51. Created by Coloradans for Colorado students, the Colorado Academic Standards provide a grade-by-grade roadmap to help ensure that students are successful in college, careers, and life. Standards are different from curricula. Standards are broad learning goals articulating what students should know, understand, and be able to do at a given time. A curriculum is an organized plan of instruction comprised of a sequence of instructional units that engage students in mastering the standards. In social studies, our standards exist to equip students with a comprehensive understanding of historical, cultural, and societal contexts. They foster civic responsibility, critical thinking, and appreciation for diversity, ensuring that students are informed, empathetic, and active participants in a global society. So on the screen there are two links. There's also in your agenda. One is the introduction to the standards. The other is a link to all 5 domains of social studies. In addition to history and civics, we also teach economics, personal finance, and geography, but we're only going to talk about history and civics tonight. Our standards in social studies were first revised in 2009 based on legislation that required the standards to prepare students for the 21st century workforce and active citizenship. Since then, they have been revised twice to reflect changes in rigor and expectations of students, an increased focus on inquiry, the inclusion of diverse perspectives and experiences, and in response to major pieces of legislation that happened between 2019 and 2021. A link to the summary of those changes and the legislation briefs are provided here. They can also be accessed through the links in your electronic agenda or by searching the titles of the documents. For reference, I'm going to show you the differences between 12th grade, 8th grade, and 5th grade, and both our history and civic standards and those 3 time changes to help orient us to what is happening. You can see here the revisions to the standards have been revised in 3 ways. One is an increased focus on inquiry, an increase in rigor, clarifying what is expected of students through the addition of verbs, and the clarification or specification of content. This is 12th grade in history, and this is 8th grade. Same thing, an increase in rigor, specification of content, and the use of verbs to help clarify what is expected of students. Same thing for 5th grade history. Again, the increase in rigor, clarifying what is expected of students through the addition of verbs, and the specification of content. It's the same thing with our civic standards. Again, I'm going to show you 12th grade, 8th grade, and 5th grade for reference. Again, in that time, the change to show you increase in rigor, the specification of content, and the addition of verbs to clarify what is expected of students. Here's 8th grade and 5th grade. Again, the changes in our standards were about increasing what is expected of students in both rigor and specifying that with verbs and specifying content, getting really, really specific on pieces of content in those 3 changes. Let's look at the legislation that has happened in the past 4 years. House Bill 1336 mandated standards on Holocaust and genocide studies to be adopted by the state board. These standards are present in 6th through 8th grade, and specifically for high school, had to be incorporated by school districts into an existing course for high school graduation beginning of July 1st of this year. Those specific standards can be linked through this QR code or the link on your agenda. Senate Bill 67 sought to strengthen civics education in Colorado by first defining what effective civics instruction was. The state mandates that it includes civic knowledge, skills, behavior, and dispositions. It updated the requirement for a civics course in high school that meets the conditions of graduation, includes instruction in the 3 branches of government and how they interact, an understanding of how laws are enacted at the federal, state, and local government levels, and the methods by which citizens shape and influence government and governmental actions. Also, it includes the formation and development of governments of the United States and now the state of Colorado, using federal and state foundational documents and having students explain the significance and relevance of these documents to modern society. All of these changes are embedded in our K through 12 civic standards, and the State of Colorado Governmental Study is embedded in our high school graduation course of civics. Lastly, House Bill 1192 included recommendations of revisions to the history and civic standards. The commission was charged with writing a report with recommendations to the State Board of Education that those standards and programs accurately reflect the history, culture, social contributions, and civil government of the United States and Colorado, including the contributions and influence of American Indians, Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals within those groups, and the intersectionality of significant social and cultural features within these communities, and the contribution and persecution of religious minorities. These revisions are present in the history and civic standards, kindergarten through 12th grade. The bill also directed boards of education to convene a community forum once every 6 years for all interested persons to discuss content standards in history and civics, which is why we are here tonight. The purpose of this bill is the teaching of historical, cultural, and social contributions of LGBTQ individuals. It is not an obligation to teach comprehensive human sexuality education. Our board has a policy on this. It can be accessed through this QR code or by searching on our website for this board policy. Okay. I'd like to orient you to the handout that you might have picked up or you might be accessing electronically. First, I'd like you to know that the Colorado Academic Standards for Social Studies are 145 pages long. I took the History and Civics Standards, K-12, and reformatted them into a document for you to use tonight. These standards were not edited in any way for content. The standards are set up with at top, in the bold, an overarching prepared graduate expectation. This is the expectation that all students should be able to do this after kindergarten through 12th grade instruction in social studies. Each grade level has a grade level expectation. This is what students should understand, know, and be able to do at each grade level. And then below that, each grade level has evidence outcomes that are specific teaching and learning. These are an indication that the student is meeting an expectation at the mastery level. You need a link to that handout. You can access that right here or through your agenda. And each page has the same thing. We have 2 history standards and 2 civics standards. These were adopted in December of 2022. Our first standard is History 1, and the overarching prepared graduate expectation is that students apply the process of inquiry to examine, analyze how historical knowledge is viewed, constructed, and interpreted. This is a progression of the skills of history. So the first page of your handout shows you our high school and 8th grade. Again, at the top, the overarching prepared graduate expectation, the grade level expectations, and then the evidence outcomes. Your next page shows you 5th through 7th grade. Same things, the overarching prepared graduate expectation, grade level expectations, and evidence outcomes. 1st through 4th grade is on the next page. And finally, kindergarten. The second history standard asks students at the end of K-12 instruction to analyze historical time periods and patterns of continuity and change through multiple perspectives with and among cultures and societies. This is a progression of the content of history that is present in our system, kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay, this page looks slightly different to help you find History 1 and 2. At the top, our overarching graduate expectation, grade level expectations, and then evidence outcomes. Then we have History Continued. We teach 2 classes in high school history, US and world. So we have different evidence outcomes for each of those. And you have a page with still world expectations as well as 8th grade. 7th grade, again, the overarching prepared graduate expectation, grade level expectations, and evidence outcomes. 5th and 6th grade, third and 4th grade, and finally kindergarten through 2nd grade. In the green section of pages, that's where our civics standards begin. The first civic standards is for students to express an understanding of how civic participation affects policy by applying the rights and responsibilities of a citizen, the how of civics. Again, our overarching prepared graduate statement is at the top, grade level expectations, and then evidence outcomes. The first green page shows high school. Then 7th and 8th grade. Fourth, 5th, and 6th grades. Third grade. And kindergarten through 2nd. The second civics overarching prepared graduate statement is that students analyze the origins, structures, and functions of government to evaluate the impact on citizens and the global society. This is a progression of the what of civics, or content. So the first page of Civics 2, again at the top, you have that overarching graduate statement, grade level expectations, and then evidence outcomes. 7th and 8th grade. Fifth and 6th grades. Second through 4th grade. And kindergarten and 1st grade. Again, if you weren't able to get that digital link to the agenda to access everything, you have time right now to capture it with your phone.
Thank you, Amy, for that summary. Of course, as those standards were on screen, you weren't meant to read them. That's why it's an orientation to what you have physically or what you have digitally on your phone so that you can track and follow. As Amy said, it'd be a really lengthy document. If you had access to all the standards, but of course you're welcome to review those on CE's webpage. And again, I'll repeat our purpose. It's to invite all of you members of our community, stakeholders of public education, to give comment on the standards themselves. So it's not a time for a question and answer, although we want to give you a summary of some of the work that we've done to begin implementing these standards, because they've changed quite a bit from 2009 to 2022, which you just saw, and as you have access to initially. So a summary by grade levels, what we'll do, and that's on the screen as well. At high school, we're in the process of reviewing and adopting new resources to align to a new scope and sequence of courses. And that's because of all of the changes in the standards. Amy reviewed for you some of the legislation that's passed that's had an impact on high school standards especially. So one piece of legislation was a House bill about civics education, and particularly Colorado government. We find a lot more standards about Colorado government, especially in high school. We see increased emphasis on modern world history, so the teaching of the Holocaust and other genocides. So in 9th grade, that's now part of our global studies course. Other legislation that Amy reviewed has to do with marginalized groups and multiple perspectives, and that will be evident too in the new scope and sequence in course history, especially because now we'll be teaching more modern world history. That's how that's evident at high school. Anything to add to that, Amy? Okay. At middle school, you may not know this, about 6th and 7th grade, we teach ancient world history. So if you think about some of the legislation I just described, it doesn't necessarily appear or affect grades 6th and 7th, where we're teaching ancient world history hemispherically by Eastern and Western Hemisphere. But 8th grade is US history, and so some of the standards that we just talked about, namely the civic standards, appear more often in 8th grade. And then you might be wondering about elementary. We don't have a resource adoption pending at elementary. The work that we're doing in curriculum, which is different than the standards, it's really about how we approach teaching and learning, is ongoing. We lead a curriculum team that develops units, and those are made publicly available. They are now. It's on our website through a link called Schoology, so that the public can see what those units look like and feel like. They're under development. That work has been new this last year, and so some of the work around these history and civic standards, namely the standards that you're looking at tonight, it doesn't go into effect until those units have been developed. So we're not looking at those units tonight. Tonight we're looking at the standards, and that's what we invite you to comment on. President Height, will you help me? The next portion. We don't want you to miss this opportunity. We make the resources that are under review available for public review and feedback. And so there are 2 dates at the bottom of the screen. If you have interest in seeing more about the history resources being considered at high school, 2 nights in December 13th and 20th, will be at Great Butler Boardroom, and we make those resources available for you all to come and look and provide comment to the selection team. So that's another great opportunity. Amy, would you click on? President Heights is going to review the guidelines for participation, and then the first group of students, first group of stakeholders we invite to speak are students.
All right, well, good evening again. These are typically the guidelines that we actually implement at our board meetings. So all we ask is that when someone's coming up, we all know that public speaking is one of our worst fears. So for those who decide to get up here and speak, we just want to give equal respect, whether you agree with their viewpoints or not. So please, just no outbursts or interruptions. You will have 3 minutes to do your comments. You have a clock here. The public has a clock up there, and there's a little ticking sound when you have about 30 seconds left for your comments. We will cut you off gently at 3 minutes, maybe a little more or less gently if it goes way beyond, just because we want to honor everybody's time and get through as many public comments as possible. So we just ask that we can have actually good civil discourse here and be civil to one another while giving public comment, and go that way. So we are going to start with some of our students first. We asked for a few of them to come up and give some perspective, so we will have them go.
I'd like to introduce this group from Mr. Whiteford's class at Grand Junction High School, who have traveled to learn some experiences of history.
Hello everyone, my name is Logan Yoakum. That's Jason Whiteford, and that's all the class. Thank you to the board for allowing us to speak tonight. Social studies has been my favorite subject since I was in elementary school, and I've dedicated 4 years at Grand Junction High School to studying social studies. I've taken Honors Global Studies when I was a freshman, AP World History when I was a sophomore, AP Psychology and CMU US History when I was a junior, and right now I'm taking AP European History. And not only have these classes enhanced my own personal knowledge, I've been able to use my knowledge from those classes in the real world. When I traveled to Eastern Europe, I was able to connect experiences that I was having right in front of me based off what I had learned from those classes. Each year, Junction takes 200 students-ish to foreign countries where we can get more exposure and see the things that we are learning in class in real life. I traveled with Mr. Whiteford, and CMU has also been involved with these trips. Dr. Oberle, a professor at CMU, was able to accompany me to Eastern Europe and Jameson to Africa. And I think that wraps it up. I'm going to pass it to Owen.
Hello, my name is Owen Hahn, and if I'm being perfectly frank, when I was in middle school, social studies absolutely wasn't my thing. However, once I took Mr. Whiteford's Honors Global Studies class, it took a quick 180 right then and there. I was able to really understand everything that's really out there in the world. I was able to see the real beauty of what happens in the world. And I feel like without that, things would be horrible. So, I also took his comparative religions class and his international forum class, which involved a lot of debate and viewing others' perspectives. And what I felt like it also introduced was a civil way for people to learn how to discuss things, see each other's perspectives rather than instantly go at each other with hostility and overall not like each other. But instead, what he taught was a way to really understand the other person, see where they're coming from, and really gain their perspective. So I feel like the way that it's been going, along with these classes, have really helped me out with some stuff that will impact me for as long as I live. And I'm going to pass it to Jason.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Jameson Whiteford. I am a senior at Grand Junction High School, and I had the fortunate opportunity of going to Africa when I was a sophomore back in June of 2022. My group and I, so Grand Junction High School students, we went to the country of Kenya, and we went all around the country. We went to the capital, Nairobi. We went to different national parks, and we got to go and we went inside the village of the Maasai tribe and meet the Maasai warriors. And that trip in particular kind of helped me pause and realize what I have as an individual living in America when I saw how Kenyans live their lives versus how Americans live their lives. Just basic things, the things they do, how they get to work, where they work, what they eat. It made me realize how lucky I am as an American and just the basic things that I enjoyed that I took for granted. So that was the first thing. The next thing was every night after we ate dinner, we would log our journal entries and we would write about things that we saw throughout the day, things we noticed, and like my friend Logan said here about Dr. Oberly, she was able to come on this trip with us and give her insight about Kenya as a country and how it runs and its past, present, and future. And that's why I think social studies was so important for that trip, is that when you're going to a different country you're visiting, it's good to get a perspective of what you're learning and how that country operates and gain knowledge of that. So that's why I thought it was very important. Social studies is not just about the history and the background of what you're learning, but you're also gaining perspective. And that's why I'll never forget that trip. So thank you very much.